Have you ever dealt with a nightmare HOA? You know, the ones that measure your grass with a ruler and fine you if your trash can is out for 5 extra minutes. Well, my story takes the cake. It all started when I moved into a new neighborhood. The house was perfect, the neighbors seemed friendly, and I was looking forward to some peace and quiet after long, stressful days at work. Little did I know, I had moved into the kingdom of the most power-hungry HOA president I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. Let's call her Karen. From day one, Karen was on me about everything. My mailbox was supposedly the wrong shade of black. The welcome mat I put out was non-compliant. She even tried to tell me I couldn't park my government-issued vehicle in my own driveway. I'm an FBI agent, so my car is a standard unmarked sedan. It's about as boring as a car can get. But according to Karen, it was an eyesore and violated some obscure rule she probably made up on the spot. I tried to be reasonable. I showed her my badge and explained that it was a work vehicle and that federal law protects my right to park it at my residence. She just scoffed and said, "I don't care who you work for. The HOA rules are the supreme law of this land." I knew right then and there this was going to be a battle. For weeks, the notices kept coming. Fines for my non-compliant car, for my garden hose being visible, for having a package on my porch for more than an hour. It was absurd. I paid none of them, of course, and sent certified letters back to the HOA board explaining why each fine was invalid, citing the specific bylaws they were misinterpreting. This only made Karen angrier. She started showing up at my door, demanding I comply. One evening, I was just settling down after a particularly draining case when there was a frantic banging on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Karen, flanked by 2 large men wearing cheap black polo shirts with HOA enforcement printed on them. One of them had a pair of shiny handcuffs dangling from his belt. I sighed. This was a new level of crazy. I opened the door. "Can I help you, Karen?" I asked, keeping my voice as calm as possible. She pointed a finger at me dramatically. "That's him. He's the one who refuses to follow the rules. Arrest him." The 2 enforcement officers stepped forward. One of them, a burly guy who looked like he spent more time at the buffet than the gym, puffed out his chest. "Sir, you're in violation of HOA Code 7.4b. We're here to take you into custody for failure to comply." I had to stop myself from laughing out loud. "Custody? Are you serious?" The other guy, who was a bit leaner but equally clueless, reached for his handcuffs. "Don't make this difficult, sir. We have the authority to detain you." I held up a hand. "Hold on a second. Let me get this straight. You, 2 gentlemen from HOA enforcement, are going to arrest me, a federal agent, on my own property for a supposed violation of a neighborhood by..." Karen chimed in, her voice shrill. "He's resisting. He's a menace. I told you he was dangerous." I looked directly at the 2 men. "Let me see your identification. And I don't mean your HOA membership card." I mean your stat-issued security licenses and your authorization to act as peace officers. They exchanged a confused look. Burly guy stammered, "WEUH. We work for the HOA. Karen hired us." "I see," I said, my voice turning colder. "So you're not police officers. You're not sheriff's deputies. You have no actual law enforcement authority whatsoever." They just stood there, silent. I continued, "Because what you're doing right now is called impersonating a law enforcement officer, which is a felony, and attempting to unlawfully detain someone. That's another felony called kidnapping." The color drained from their faces. The lean guy quickly tucked his handcuffs back into his pocket. Karen, however, was not backing down. "They have every right. I gave them the authority." I turned my attention back to her. "Karen, you can't just give people the authority to break the law. That's not how it works." I pulled out my phone. "Now, you all have two options. You can leave my property immediately and never pull a stunt like this again. Or you can stay right where you are while I call the actual police and my supervisor at the bureau. I can assure you they'll be very interested to hear about your little HOA enforcement team." The two men didn't need to be told twice. They practically tripped over each other trying to get back to their minivan, which I now noticed had a magnetic HOA enforcement sign slapped on the side. They peeled out of the cul-de-sac like they were fleeing a bank robbery. Karen was left standing on my porch, sputtering in disbelief. "You can't do this. This isn't over. I'm going to have you removed from this neighborhood." "Good luck with that, Karen," I said, and calmly closed the door in her face. The next day, I made a few phone calls. I contacted the state licensing board for security guards and filed a report against the company the two men worked for. I also had a conversation with the actual head of the HOA board, a reasonable man who was horrified to hear what Karen had done. He had no idea she'd hired a fake police force with their funds. An emergency board meeting was called. Karen was not only removed from her position as president, but the entire board voted to censure her and strip her of all committee roles. The security company lost its license, and the two officers faced legal trouble of their own. The best part, the HOA had to issue a formal, written apology to me and waive all the ridiculous fines Karen had tried to levy against me. Since then, things have been wonderfully quiet. The new HOA president is a sweet lady who mostly just organizes the annual block party. My government car sits peacefully in my driveway. My welcome mat is no longer a source of controversy, and my garden hose can be wherever I please. Sometimes a little knowledge of the law and a firm stance is all you need to put an entitled person back in their place. It just goes to show you, don't mess with people when you don't know who you're messing with. Thanks so much for listening to my story. If you've ever had a wild encounter with an HOA or an entitled person, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.